I'm about to show you how to EQ your vocals so that they sound clear, so that they stand out in the mix, and they sound really professional. Let's get to it. Alright, so here we are in Pro Tools, and as always, you don't need to use Pro Tools, it's just what I'm using. You can do this in any software with pretty much any plugin. You just need a simple parametric EQ plugin, and I'll show that to you now. And I'm not going to go through the whole definition of EQ and the history of it and what it is. I just want to give you a very simple 3-step formula that you can use to apply to your vocal that will get your vocals sounding great in probably 80 or 90% of situations. And just to be clear, this isn't the only way to do it. There are always loads of ways to get something sounding great, and it always depends on the vocal and the song and a whole bunch of different things. But this is just a simple set of rules of thumb, if you will, that will get you there with most situations. So let me just play you the vocal that I've got here, the vocal recording, and this is pretty much clean, just with a bit of reverb on really. To your world, let me inside, the wonders I will find. Now, what you may notice is that doesn't really sound that bad when you listen to it by itself. It sounds like a decent recording, and that's the way it should be. But now let me play it for you in the mix, and let's just hear what that sounds like. I'm just going to unsolo this. To your world, let me inside, the wonders I will find. Now what you might notice now is that it actually sounds, in the context of the mix, it sounds a bit muffled, like it doesn't sound like it's really in there, and you may have had this problem. Let me show you what happens when I bring it up, because it's not just a matter of bringing up the volume. Let me just show you that. To your world, let me inside, the wonders I will find. Could this be? Okay, even when I bring up the volume, I don't know if you notice this, but it doesn't sound like it's sitting in the track now. It sounds like it's sort of sitting on top of it. It's not joined together with all the other instruments. And that's why we need to use EQ to make it match the sound of the other instruments and make it sit in there. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Alright, so firstly you need to get your EQ out. I'm using this Waves REQ, which is the Renaissance series, but you can use any parametric EQ that you've got. And it's just one that has these different bands that you can manipulate over here. You also get EQs that don't actually show the graph. But I think when you're just starting out, it helps to be able to see what's going on. Now, I know a lot of guys say, listen with your ears, not with your eyes, and that's true. That's very true. But once again, when you're starting out, it really helps to understand where these frequencies are in the spectrum. And it's good to get a visual idea of that because it helps you to identify with them. So then like when the low frequencies are down the bottom and the high frequencies are here at the top. And it just gives you a clearer understanding, I think, when you're starting out. I think it definitely does help. Okay, so step 1 is to use a high-pass filter. Now, what a high-pass filter is it's a filter that only allows the high frequencies or the frequencies above a certain point to pass through, and it rolls off the low frequencies. Now, if you don't understand that, don't worry, let me just show you what that sounds like. So I'm just going to play the vocal soloed over here. To your world, and I'm going to put this high pass filter on. Let me inside, and you'll hear as I roll it up. The wonders I will find. Could this be real? So as you can hear, it's taking all the frequencies below this point over here, wherever I move it to, and it's just rolling them off, so it's taking them away. And you can actually control that slope over there even with this Q over here, and you can show how much you want it to roll off, or how fast rather you want it to roll off. So why would we want to use a high pass filter? Well, what it does for you is it just cleans up your track, and it just rolls off all that low end energy and sound that you don't really need in a vocal, that might sound fine by itself when the vocal's soloed, but when you put it in the track, it's just going to muddy up the mix. So let me just show you, and what I like to do is actually just play it back and move the high pass filter up until I can hear it rolling off, and then just back it off a bit so that you don't actually hear it. It's more just to make sure that it's in there, So let me just show you that.
to your world.
I'm going to move this up.
Let me inside the wonders I will find.
So I can hear it kind of kicking in there. You see.
Could this be real? The things I feel.
And we don't want to hear it, you know. We don't really want to hear it taking off the low end because we don't want this thin sounding vocal. We just want it to roll off what we don't hear anyway. Things that are going to muddy up the track if they're in there, but if we take them out, it'll sound a lot cleaner in context. So that's with the high pass filter on. On to step 2. Now, this is really just a rule of thumb, like I mentioned, but on most vocal tracks, it's nice to add a little bit of top end. And I like to use just a shelving filter, and a shelving filter is one that kind of looks like a shelf because when you move it up, it raises all the frequencies above that certain point. Now, the other kind of filter you get is the bell curve, which is one that looks like this because it looks like a curve. But I find that the shelving filter just sounds more natural because it boosts all the frequencies together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it back again, and I'm just going to raise some of that.
To your world, let me inside the wonders.
And you can
I will
hear it's just
find.
adding that sheen.
Could this be real? The things I feel.
All right, so the frequency that you want to aim for over there is, you know, anywhere from 8K to maybe 12K, even 16 if you want it to be very subtle. There's really no rules with this. It's just about hearing what sounds good, and as the saying goes, if it sounds right, it is right. So you've just got to experiment with that a bit. So let's see what our track is sounding like in context over here when I play the mix. So this is before. Let me play it bypassed again.
To your world, let me inside the wonders I will find.
Now let me put our EQ on.
To your world, let me inside the wonders I will find.
Okay, so you can definitely hear it sounding a bit clearer there. I think now I can actually just bring up the level a bit because we're rolling off some of the frequencies. So let's just see what that sounds like.
Let me inside the wonders I will find. Could this be real? The things I feel.
All right, so you can definitely hear it sounding clearer then. Okay, and on to the third and final step, which I call the sweep, which is where you take the mid-range frequency and you're just looking for any offending frequencies and dropping those a bit. Let me show you what I mean. So there's a little trick that you can do. If I boost the mid-range frequency, so if I take one of these over here, I just bring it up, I'm just going to make it kind of a little bit thinner. This is adjusting the bandwidth or Q. And let me just play it back and show you what I mean. So I'm just going to play it here.
World, let me inside.
So you can hear, you can sweep
the
it.
Wonders I will find. Could this be real?
And what you want to do is look for the most offending frequency. So the one that maybe sounds, kind of hurts your ears a bit if it's up loud. And when you listen to it, it just doesn't sound very good. So let's do that again.
World, let me inside the wonders I will find.
So as you can hear there, that's kind of that nasal sound. And this is usually, as a rule of thumb, you know, as you'll see, this is usually near 1K, you know, 901 kilohertz. And usually you can cut this a bit and it usually makes the vocal sound better. So I'm just going to take a little bit out there. You're not going to cut it all the way out.
World, let me inside the wonders I will find. Could this be real?
Okay, so you can just hear it makes it sound a little bit cleaner, you know, a little bit more expensive sounding perhaps. Let me just play you the before and after then. This is before.
Let me inside the wonders I will find.
This is after.
Let me inside the wonders I will find.
Okay, so you can hear the differences are very subtle, but they do make a big difference in the mix. Let me play that in context of the mix over here for you. I'm going to bring that up. This is bypassed, so this is without the EQ.
Let me inside the wonders I will find.
And with the EQ.
Let me inside the wonders I will find.
So you can definitely hear there that the vocal sits a lot better. It sounds a lot clearer in the context of the mix. It sounds a lot cleaner. So that really is just 3 rules of thumb that you can use on pretty much any vocal to get it sounding better. And this will differ a lot depending on the style, depending on the kind of track. Just to give you a couple of tips here, if you're doing a more aggressive style of music, like say like a more rocky style or maybe even rap, you might want to boost more of the presence range, which is between about 2K and 5K. And I'll just show you what that sounds like. If I just go over here, I'll take another band.
The wonders I will find.
So it's this area here.
Could this be real? The things I feel. Let me inside. The wonders I will find. Could this be real?
Let me just bypass that.
Let me inside.
And you can hear the difference.
The wonders I will find. Could this be real?
You can hear how the vocal really stands out when you just have that boost. And this is more of a kind of a rocky kind of pop rock song. And so it maybe works with a little bit of boost over there. Now, you've probably heard it before said that it's better to cut than boost. Now, that's not always true. This is something that really confused me a lot because all these people in these books would say, you know, you should never boost EQ, you should only cut EQ. And then I'd see the pros doing it and they would be boosting loads of EQ. So let me just explain that to you quickly. What I found is that it is more transparent to cut EQ. It sounds, in other words, it sounds less noticeable. It doesn't sound as obviously filtered. Now, one of the main reasons the pros get away with boosting EQ is because, first of all, the tracks that they're getting are great recordings. They've been recorded with great mics, great singers, great equipment, with an engineer that knows what he's doing, and the equipment that they're using is just, you know, top of the line. So it sounds good, and you can almost do anything to those tracks, and it sounds really good. The recording already is very high quality. But if you've got a track that doesn't sound so good, if you're trying to fix something, then it's better to rather cut EQ. Just a rule of thumb to go by. Okay, so I have one final tip for you. If you're finding that your vocal is not sitting in the track, if you find that it seems to be jumping out the mix a bit, usually the offending frequency or range is this low mid-range over here. And I'll play that back and just boost it so you can hear what I mean.
To your world, let me inside. The wonders I will find.
You see, if you've got that sticking out, it's never going to sound like it sits in there because those frequencies are jumping out at you. So what you want to do there, and I mean, I've obviously just exaggerated it, yeah, but if you've got this problem, you can just cut this back a little bit. Let me just show you that. And obviously we'll have to raise the volume.
The wonders I will find. Could this be real? The things I feel. Let it in, then let it out.
Alright, so you can just hear that it takes away those lower frequencies that tend to pop out of the mix, and it just makes it a bit clearer. But now obviously you can overdo it and then your vocal will sound a bit thin. And in this case, we actually don't want to overdo that too much. So there you have it. That's a 3 simple step formula that you can use for almost any vocal to get it sounding great in a very short amount of time. And if nothing else, it's just a go-to set of rules of thumb that you can use almost every time.
Must be the beautiful you.